gonna turn it over first to our first speaker, Griselda, that's gonna share her take on Kagan strategies. And yeah, I was so excited when I got to see part of a lesson that she was giving, and it was one of those it was one of those times where I was like, "How old are these kids again?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, these are first graders." So I'm really glad she agreed to share what she does. So and we'll have time to ask questions. This is like a learning opportunity, safe place. So I'll turn it over and um,
Thank you, James. Can everybody see my screen? I don't know. Okay, great. Okay, so my goal through what the little that I'm gonna be able to present in these 25 minutes are to help, show how I incorporate Kagan cooperative grouping. I enhanced my ELD, ELA, and science lessons. I improved reading fluency. Um, how I use it as a way to engage parents and students, to motivate the students to listen and speak to others, to improve student language development. You're gonna see this across all my lessons. This year I focused on the microphone feature, or I don't even know how to call it. You'll notice I'm very technologically challenged, so it's a good thing if I'm able to do it, most teachers will be able to. So this year I started using that because I noticed I was having a hard time grading their listening and speaking. And so I thought of the idea of starting to record their conversations using Skies, have them record themselves talking so that I could refer back to it and be able to grade it. So anyhow, I'm going to go over one lesson and feel free to ask any questions. I'm not good at keeping up with the chat, but I'll try to go back and forth. So in this quick lesson, I'm going to demonstrate. I focused on ELD is a big thing in elementary. I don't know about the other grades, but the main standards I focused were on exchanging ideas with others through oral collaborative conversations, listening actively, and expressing information and ideas. So basically, it's all about discussion. And so our school has been pushing Kagan strategies, which is good because it's all about cooperative learning. And so they call them structures. So one of the main ones I focus on is stand up, hand up, pair up, because it's the quickest and easiest way for me to get my kids to just stand up, put your hand up, and pair up. And automatically I tell them you have to choose different partners so that way they get to speak to different kids. I have a lot of English language learners and newcomers that I do specifically assign my more advanced kids. Like there are times where there's two kids that I do need them to be with my two higher kids that will be able to translate so that the child can, repeat what they say at the very least. And so that's the only time. The other times I try to have them choose, each other. So anyways, these are the structures. And I'm going to give you one of the things I do. So the lesson begins here. This is the lesson, and I kind of grouped it together. So you're going to see the slides all open up, which is a great feature that I really haven't used that much because I have the title and then I'll have the lesson and but for the presentation purpose, this really helped to condense my slides. So anyways, I recorded the kids because I was going to have one of the Kagan representatives come in and demonstrate how the kids use it in the class. I wanted them to have from a previous lesson the background so that they wouldn't forget when the following day we're going to have a conversation. So the kids I recorded them. I'm sorry, the lesson was focused on character traits. So we read the story of the giving tree, and as a class we came up with 4 traits, 2 for the tree and 2 for the little boy in the story. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that story. It's a great story. So the kids, we've been learning about character traits, and they came up with courageous and selfish for one of the characters, and what was it, generous and empathetic for the tree character. And so I'm just gonna briefly show you, what we did during the lesson. Here's a video of.
The boy was courageous. He climbed a tree, from branches, saw a boat in the ocean, and get married. But the boy was selfish. He took her apples to make branches to make a house, to make a boat.
Thank you. Okay, so then I had my other student explain the traits of the tree. And so the only reason I recorded this was so that we could quickly do an overview of what we'd been learning. So that way it would be fresh in their minds as they recorded themselves with their partner. We'd also came up with, and I don't know if you noticed the smart board that we have in the background. It has been the greatest tool. Most schools have these interactive smart boards. And it's great because you can display your lessons from, skies, and it just makes it so easy. You just press and click. So hopefully you have that. That just kind of amped up my skies use. And so here's the rubric that the kids had to use, and we came up with it together. So I always start, when I do my rubric, we start with, what is a 3? A 3 means you're meeting standard. You're where you need to be. For first grade, this is the first grade class. And so the kids, I guided them through the process. We have to speak in complete sentences and answer the prompt, the question. And we build on each other's idea. That's a big thing because students don't really understand what building on each other's ideas is. So we model, we give examples. It's all part of English language development. If you've been through the training, you know what I'm talking about. So we model it. Okay, this is what it looks like for me, adding information to what you just said. So not only am I agreeing, but I'm going to add more information, because if I repeat what you're saying, I'm not building on anything. So that's one of the big things that I was looking at. And then 3 exchanges, all it means is that, I talked, you talked, and I talked again. So I did a little visual for the kids to understand. So to get a 1 exchange, to get a 2 exchanges, 3 exchanges, and the whole time you're building on the other person's idea. So we've done this several times before. I just hadn't recorded it. And I told them, the rubric is going to be more difficult than a previous rubric we had, because as you're learning, you're getting smarter. So the rubric has to get harder. And that's something that we, throughout the year, it's like, as you get better, the material has to get more difficult. And the same thing applies to my scaffolds. I'm giving you help with these crutches, with these sentence frames. But as the year goes on, I'm going to take them away. And that's something that I think we miss in our trainings, where, support your kids with this kind of structure, scaffold, and give them this sentence frame. And you're always giving them all these sentence frames, but you're not taking them away as the year goes by. And so that's a major miss, because then they are crutches. Think of them as crutches. The kids rely on them and keep relying on them. And the whole point is for them to independently do that. Sorry, I'm going to add things in, and that's just how I teach. So for character traits, basically I had the kids use the program, and what they did was I did what we normally do. Kids, you're going to stand up, hand up, pair up, use that strategy. And they did, they paired up, but they had to take their iPads, because we use iPads in first grade. And so because they were in partners, it could only be 1 iPad. So, the trick was, you have to find a partner that has an iPad. If you don't have an iPad, your partner has to have an iPad, because you're going to be recording each other. So they did that. They paired up and they recorded their conversations. And so after they were done, and I'm so sorry, the prompt was, in the story, The Giving Tree, what character trait did the tree have? What character trait did the boy have? So you have to pick one. Both you and your partner must select the same character and trait to build on. So because they had 4 options to choose, the first partner had to select, first the character and one of the traits. And the other person couldn't talk about any other trait. They had to stick to the topic. And we go back to talking and writing. You stick to the same topic, whether you agree with what your partner picked or not. You have to build on what they said, even if you agree that the character wasn't courageous. And so the first person to talk would say, I think the tree was generous because, and then give the example. And then the other partner, who maybe didn't want to talk about the tree, had to talk about the tree and build on another reason of why the tree was generous. So it was good to be able to record it, because I can't go around, and that was one of my pet peeves about ELD. How am I going to listen to all these conversations at once? And so with this tool, I have like the evidence of my grading. And so actually I learned something as I was preparing for the meeting. My grades didn't transfer as I selected all my cards and transferred them. So I noticed none of them are graded, which is good, so that we can kind of go over one example. So let's see. I don't remember what.
I think the boy was selfish because he never watered the tree. I think the boy was courageous because he wasn't scared. I think the boy was courageous because he wasn't scared. He wasn't scared to get married and have children.
Okay. So here I just stop it, because we're all grading and we have this understanding that we're going to respect each other, and this is all learning. This is not going on our report card. We're just going to look and improve on our speaking. So that was an automatic 1, because the first student spoke about the tree being courageous. Right now my mind draws a blank, but the other student, let me quickly replay it. They're talking about 2 different character traits.
I think the boy was selfish because.
Okay. Okay, so he talks about the boy, and then the other girl talks about the tree. And so how are you building when you're talking about 2 different characters, 2 different traits? Like, you're not, so that was really helpful for them. As you're going through the recordings, the kids are really getting it. Okay, so first of all, we're not even on the same character, and we're not obviously talking about the same trait. So it was helpful for the kids to make mistakes. And the thing is, as you go through these lessons and they start to improve, the minute these kids that got a 1 get a 2, it's like everyone's cheering and we're glad. See, you did better than last time. You did a little, so we're all, this is a great tool. Sorry, I'm just rambling on. So we also used so that's the lesson that I did with the Kagan strategies. And the other great feature also, sometimes you grade, it's like, what's the purpose of your grading? Overall, when I grade, I see no reason for me to keep I have a grade book, obviously, because I've got to do report cards, but you use grading as a learning tool. And that's something that Skies does allow you to do, because you get to put everything on blast and display. And we're here to learn from each other, not to make fun of each other, but to respectfully listen and see how we can do this better. I don't know if any of you are familiar with open court, but we used to do with writing 2 stars and a wish, where you would say 2 positive things and 1 wish that you had of how to improve, that writing. And one of the things that to this day I still use, since I started over 20 years ago, we pick on, well, we look at each other's work, but we'll select maybe 1 error. And then, but as you go through it, they get it. It's like, oh yeah, there has to be a capital, a period, even though for every kid, you're not nitpicking every little thing that's wrong. So even though you're grading and you think they'd be embarrassed, the kids that there are that small group that, you know, usually ends up getting a 1. And you'll be surprised because I'll have those kids tell me, are we going to be able to grade it? Are we going to be? So if they don't feel embarrassed or ashamed, first of all, as a teacher, you've already established the foundation that this is so that we can get better. I know that it's working because I see them improving. Okay, so that was the end of my, let's see, that was the Kagan lesson. I close that up. So I also use this for presentations. And so as the year goes by, I started doing like mini presentations, and one of them was on prepositions. The kids used a puppet to, really simple. The prompt was tell your partner what a preposition is and give 4 examples with the puppet. So here you're gonna see her, and they're recording each other, by the way. So if it's moving a lot, it's not me. They learn to, you know, record each other as the lessons go by.
Prepositions are words that tell a position. I will show you 4 examples in my book. On next question, or between. This is what a preposition is.
Okay, so you'll notice there's a lot of background noise, and I had that issue, but because even with all that noise, learning came from it. The kids were excited, and they would ask me like, are we going to be able to record each other? So it wasn't enough of a reason for me not to record them. You know, the noise was a bit of a problem, but there was still learning, and they were all actively engaged because they all had to record themselves. So there wasn't any of these sitting back and not doing anything while your partner does everything, because we're going to record you. So the noise, I want you to think of the noise as irrelevant, because even though there's all this background noise, everybody was participating, everyone was practicing, and I was still able to hear enough to be able to grade it or figure out if this kid was getting what I was trying to teach. So you'll see that it's noisy. One of the ways that that problem was solved was that our school purchased these headphones that had an integrated microphone. And if I have time later on, I'll show you some of the recordings where how clearly you hear their voice when they're reading their books. And so maybe that's something that, you know, schools could consider. They also did a presentation on timelines. And this was just during their winter break. They had to do a timeline with their family. And then they came back with the timeline of important events in their lives. And so I told them that they had to present the important events of their lives on the timeline to their partner, because they were preparing for their presentations that they were going to do on their animal project. So they had to begin with a topic sentence, and keep in mind the whole time I'm preparing them, because one of the most difficult standards in first grade for writing is to write a paragraph. Like they have to have a topic, supporting sentence, and some sense of closure. That's what the standard states. So the way they speak is the way they write. So in these recordings, I start to focus on having a topic sentence, having a supporting sentence, and having a sense of closure, because later on they're writing and it'll just be automatic because they'll remember. So here they had to make sure to begin with your topic sentence. And their topic sentence was something as simple: my name is, and I will be presenting my life timeline. That's their topic. Make sure to end with a closing sentence: I hope you liked my timeline. So it was very basic, but the idea is that I'm presenting, I'm supporting it, and then I'm closing somehow. And so, let's see, I'm gonna try to find different, let's see. And, you know, I'm not picking out the best ones, but just trying to remember. Like this student usually struggles.
My name is Isabel Chavez. I was born on November 5th.
I'm sorry, let me remember.
My name is Isabel Chavez. I was born on November 5th, turning 60. I am 1 year old, and I am celebrating my first Easter. I am 2 years old, and this are I went with my family to holidays November. I am 3 years old.
Okay, so they went through their timeline. Some of them in this situation were able to record. There were very few. For some reason, I couldn't get them to record, and that's where the tech person at the school comes in, try to figure out the issue.
I will be presenting my lifetime life. I was born on September 6, 2016.
Okay.
I was baptized on my.
So this is what they were doing. When you just hear the voice, they all had the scaffold on top. They had the sentence frame, they had their timeline, and they had their closing sentence just to help them. And so, like I said, in the beginning, we have those crutches built in, and then later on, they were able to do it on their own. So finally, so this presentation to their partner, because all they were doing was presenting to their partner. Later on, they did an animal project. And again, they did this project at home because we didn't have time to decorate their boxes, their shoe boxes with the animal that their group selected. And so again, we use the feature of the recording. And it's so funny because I'm preparing them for open house, because for open house, I told them, you're going to present your project to your parents. And so one of my students accidentally pressed print, and I never use that feature because I don't print anything from there. I mean, rarely. And so I saw that all their videos were on display, and I thought, oh, this is perfect for back to school night. They could just scroll on our interactive TV, find their picture, and press play. So that's what they did for open house. When their parents came in, they just found their video, and then they selected play, and they made it wide, and then their parents got to see their presentations. And so I'm gonna stop it here. So these are just examples of how I've used Skies, and it has enhanced my lessons. We also had a STEAM Fest for science, and we used mystery science, and one of the lessons was about creating a windproof umbrella. So we used the structure of a tree to create an umbrella that wouldn't blow away with the wind. And the whole idea was to get up to learn the engineering process. And I was able to integrate videos into the lesson so that the kids could see the problem. So the problem here is, and then they had to come up with the problem. Well, you'll see how all the umbrellas start to blow away. And so we had to come up with a solution of how to prevent the umbrellas from blowing away. And we looked at the tree structure and how there's openings in branches and leaves that allow wind to get through. And so I added the engineering process. So we asked the question, we imagine a solution, then we start to plan it. I added the worksheet. All it is draw your tools that we're going to use. These are the tools, and your design plan of how we're going to create these umbrellas. And so they also had to explain how to make an umbrella. So they explain what happened first, next one. So you've got the feature of them being able to write. And again, I love this print, because then you can see everybody's work. And as you can notice, not all of them finished every activity, but still useful for me, even as I'm during parent conferences, to pull up stuff. The portfolio feature is great because everything's there. So the kids explain how they made their umbrella. Here they recorded themselves, or they took pictures of their design plan, of their designs. And in the end, we got to test our prototype. And so there were a lot of failures, which is good because we learn from our failures. And so let's see, I got to pick a different student. Okay, so only because I keep selecting certain ones. So they were testing out their umbrellas, and yes, it was a failure. So we were charting on this orange poster with tally marks, all the failures and successes. And so the most important part of the process was obviously to go into the improve phase. Like, how can I improve my umbrella? And these are the questions that we asked. So we had to change our umbrella and then go through the process of redoing it and fixing it. And then we recorded until finally we had a success. Let me see if, so I added pictures. And the nice thing about that is that we had a STEAM Fest and the kids, oh, wrong one, sorry. The kids, well, maybe I could just go here, had to present. And so this was our area, and the kids got to take their iPads and show basically what they learned through the lesson and their videos of their failures and their mistakes. So that, and then we also created QR codes for the parents to see, but everything was accessible to them because they were able to use their skies. You know, they had their iPads, they were familiar with how to use it, and parents could see videos. So anyways, this is all one lesson condensed. And then I also decided to use it for reading fluency. So basically the kids recording themselves. And I know I'm running out of time, so I'm gonna skip over to elevated writing because this is something I started to do towards the end, where the kids would record themselves. And then I was so busy testing the reality that I would just tell them, take out your iPads, listen to what you said about the best tool and write it. So they had to listen to themselves explain, you know, what the best tool in the classroom was and the reasons. One reason, another reason, as you can see, it's a great tool. They had to write it. So that was powerful because not only was I testing their writing skills, but their listening skills and their speaking skills, because they spoke it to record it. They had to write it, but they had to listen carefully to be able to jot down everything they had said. So and they were into it. Like I had them busy while I'm on the side testing for a long time. And I thought, oh, this was a great idea. You know, so you'll find that as you use skies, you'll find more innovative ways of using it. And I'm very pleased with it. I wouldn't be here talking about it if I didn't see it as a benefit in my classroom. I know I talked a lot, but does anyone have any questions?
Thank you so much. We have time for questions because I don't need we went over I went over and we have time at the end. So please, if you have questions that you didn't already, you know, ask, please. We have a couple minutes. Go ahead and mute yourself and ask. That was amazing. And I know it takes time to find the unmute button. So once you find it, if you want to ask, don't feel free to just interrupt. Please interrupt me. But I just want to say while I'm waiting to be interrupted, I just so many things that I thought about, like watching those lessons. I had a chance to be in person and see part of one of those lessons and hear students talk about the rubric, and it's, I mean, you look at those students and you're like, wow, these are like little college students, you know, little high school students, and it's just amazing to see that these things that we know students continue to struggle with even when they're big, right? I'm looking at this thinking about how relevant it is to my middle schooler, that with Skies and all the supports that it offers, a first grade teacher can give the students the scaffolding they need to kind of, you know, see you know, examples and to demonstrate and to be successful. I love the environment you create where the students feel like, you know, they can everything's helpful. You know, I might get a 1, but it's like, okay, now I understand because it's like what Julius was saying. I've seen the other students, I've heard from the other students. I know what I can do to get a 2, to get a 3, to get a 4. And, you know, being able to record yourselves. I mean, you saw when the students were recording together, you could totally hear them. And, you know, when they were like standing back recording the other one, you could pick up some noise, but you could really, you know, get the important elements, and the students could get a good take where they really felt comfortable and then post it. And what thing that really like made such a huge impact on me when I saw part of one of Griselda's lessons was that week I got to visit a middle school teacher, and the middle school teacher was talking about what he did with his class and how beneficial it was for all the middle school students in the class to hear each other's response, just like Griselda was talking about going through all their responses and grading it. And I was like, wow, this is just applies from all the way up through. It always applies for any grade. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for sharing all those cool ideas and seeing that it's possible with first graders. And I think that our next speaker, Dave Cameron, probably had a smile on his face when he was hearing some of the stuff that you were sharing at the end, because I think I was looking at that thinking, wow, this is some cool project-based learning you're also doing that I didn't expect to hear about. And so I want to introduce Dave Cameron to talk about design-based learning, which and I just want to say that it's exciting to have Dave here, because the school where Dave's at was one of the first places that ever used skies, and Dave's one of the first teachers. And Julius and I are so thankful that those first teachers that started using skies said, no, yeah, this is, you guys, this is really helping us. You guys should keep going, like, don't give up. Because it was those people that are like, okay, maybe we can do this, and so all right, so I'm going to turn it over now to Dave Cameron from Gabrielino High School, who's going to talk about design-based learning.
Thank you, James. Griselda, just what's been the parents' response when they see their students using skies, or when they've kind of seen it at open house? What have they come back to you with? Because you've done amazing stuff.
They were blown away for open house. I used it, they kind of glanced at it during conferences for, that I would look at their portfolio work. But when the kids were showing on the screen and how they love it. And one of the comments that I did get from the parents was like, this is just amazing. You think they teach me now. So yeah.
And what about counselors and administrators at your school site as far as using it in the classroom? What's been their feel of using this tool, and have they been supportive?
They have, because they walked in as I'm grading writing assignments with the class, and they see the benefit. So they'll say, wow, this is great. I use it a lot for independent work time. I didn't have a chance to talk about that. But for me, testing, really small group time is testing time. We test so much in elementary, especially in first grade, because it's a lot of one-on-one. So the kids independently do the assignments, but then to stay on them, because some of them will want to play, wander, talk, or whatever, after I finish my testing, I'll go to the smartboard and say, okay, let's see what you guys submitted. Let's see what you guys were doing. And so we'll go through it and grading. And I've had administrators come in as we're going through our assignments. They're like, what a great tool. Like they're on check, because you're going to be checking what they're doing. So it makes them do the work while they're working independently. But the problem with teachers that I do see is that even though you do have to create a lot of this, but sometimes it's just practice, just easy download of assignments. That's how I started using it, just to keep them busy work. I started using it because I just wanted to keep them busy while I was working. Not just busy, because I could have them use any program to keep them busy, right? But I wanted to make sure I knew what they were doing as I'm testing kids on the side. So that's how I started. My use was just downloading, and that's easy to download files of stuff that I would purchase on TPT. But they were beneficial assignments, things that I knew would help them. So I'm giving you a long answer to a short question, but that's how I started. But then later on, I started, incorporating more things. And so it does take time. But after you do that, all you have to do is copy and paste for the next year, and it's done. So that's the hard part, getting teachers to want to put in the extra time during the summer to create those lessons. And I'm willing to share all the time, but yeah, that's the one feedback from other teachers that I get in my grade level. Oh, it takes so much time to get the kids to learn how to use it in first grade. But it's a week you're dedicating to teaching them how to use the QR code, and yeah.
Thank you for mentioning the payoff, Griselda, and Ms. Yang might also want to contribute. One of our early adopters too, Dave. I noticed her hand was up, and also I appreciate Griselda's feedback because we're making some extra special things to make it even easier for you first graders to get started. Ms. Yang, did you have anything that you also want
No,
to share?
I have a question. So how do you choose guys for the open house? Because I think my students are doing a fantastic job on skies. But even I tell them you need to show skies on you need to show skies to your parents. I have very few kids, they open the computer and they show it to their parents. So I was just wondering, how do you manage your guys? Make sure parents to see the wonderful work their kids did during the open house.
For open house, it was the presentation. So I selected the print function and all of their videos were displayed on the smart board that I have. So the kids had to scroll, find their video, select to widen the image, and then press play. So that's how I showed it. I didn't have their iPads out or anything. It was just on display on the smart board. And with the print feature, you can see all of their work. So the kids can just, and yeah, so there's different ways. Another way could be just having them have their iPad out and having the parents go through their assignments. In first grade, I closed everything and I only open the one assignment I want from each section. So they learn how to do that. Otherwise, it's overwhelming for them.
Thank you.